על הדבש ועל העוקץ, על המר והמתוק, על ביתנו התינוקת, שמורי לי הטוב.
Shalom, everyone. On the sweet and on the bitter, on the honey and on that sting, we welcome you all. I'm Rabbi Micah Hyman. This is Cantor Chaim Frankel, and we are with Kilat Israel of Pacific Palisades, and we welcome you to say Happy Birthday, Israel.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
72 years young and looking good.
Sameach.
And I'm here with Jonathan Baruch as well, a congregant and friend and member and founder of Israel 21C. Well, I want to refer back to that beautiful song of Naomi Shemer, which was written before the State of Israel was founded. The song is about the bitter and the sweet, and that we're protected and guided through difficult and challenging times. The song was a reflection a generation after one of the most difficult chapters in Israel, and if not the world's history, a malaria pandemic that caused great distress in the Galilee. This was a moment when 1 out of every 5 children in Kibbutz Degania not only suffered from malaria, but was fatal. And there, in that moment, not only Israel, but all the Middle East was suffering from a tremendous pandemic of malaria and mosquito bites. And then there was one man with great ingenuity, an American, Louis Brandeis. He had a great love of Israel, and as a Zionist, he spent $20,000 and invested in one doctor named Yisrael Kliegler. And Yisrael Kliegler moved to Israel and developed a technology and educational program and drained the swamps. That's the original draining of the swamps. And from 1920 to 1928, helped reduce malaria significantly. And by 1968, malaria was non-existent in Israel. This was not only for the state of Israel, though. This was for the world. As epidemics needed to be learned and educated and spread how best to treat and protect one another, this is how Israel became a light to all the nations in this pandemic. And here, Jonathan, I wanted to bring you into this because 100 years later, here we stand. COVID is a difficult disease, a challenging one for the world. How do you see Israel playing that same role as leader, innovator, and gift giver of technology and science for us?
I look at this that chaos presents opportunity. And quite frankly, the state of Israel, one could say, was founded amongst a lot of chaos. But the one thing that Israel has always done, time and time again, is create opportunity. And at Israel 21C, what we do is we like to tell the good that comes from Israel. And part of that good is how we deal with people, how we deal with humanity, and not just Israelis, but the world. And I'm proud to say that if you go on our site, Israel21c.com, what you will see are so many wonderful technologies that are being developed right now in real time to treat COVID-19. It's incredible to see some of the medical technology that is coming out of places like Technion, Tel Aviv University, or just the everyday scientists who are working collectively with the doctors. You know, the other thing that I think is important to talk about is, you know, not just how they treat disease, but how they treat people. And obviously this has been a very challenging time for many people, and we've heard the stories of people passing without their loved ones. But in Israel, no more. They have found a way, for people to die with dignity.
You know, Jonathan, you mentioned the word chaos, and I go back to the beginning of time, to our Torah, tohu vavohu, the chaos in creating the world. And Jacob's wrestling with God, and his name changed to Yisrael, to Yashar El, to wrestling with God. And this is not only a time of wrestling and struggling, but you speak of humanity. We are a human nation. We are actually borderless. There are no more borders. We are borderless. We now realize how vulnerable we are as human beings. And it is across all society. It is across all people, of all cultures, of all races. This is a Yashar El moment. This is about wrestling with and struggling with. Rabbi Hyman, you said it so beautifully, about the bitter and the sweet.
In the midst of so much challenge. You know, every cloud has a silver lining. That's not how Israel sees it. Every cloud's an opportunity for rain. We don't just see it as a lining, we see it as the substance. You give me challenge and I will find a way. And we have found a way. Israel stands today strong and will continue to be firm in its existence and its contributions to this great world. A Nefesh Yehudi, a Jewish spirit within an animating world that is towards healing and health. That's the hope. That's Hatikvah. And so when we stand for Shabbat services, I hope you don't have to wear your Kibbutz Fabulous 1970s circa. I picked this one out of my dad's closet, I gotta be honest. But I hope you do wear blue and white. I hope you stand as we hear these words of the Hatikvah. May there always be hope in times of challenge. May you see Israel as a shining light of the future, as a hope for us to see a way forward, for the past to not only inform our future, but to provide the pathway to a life of health and peace in this world. Hatikvah. Cantor Frankel.
Kol balevav pnima nefesh Yehudi homia ulfatei mizrach kadima Ayin leTzion Sophia Od lo avda tikvateinu Hatikva bat shnot alpayim Liot am chofshi בארצנו ארץ ציון וירושלים להיות עם חופשי בארצנו